In the last video, we imagined what would happen if William Afton and the Prototype crossed paths. In that story, they were enemies. But today there is a question that was never answered. What if they had realized that destroying each other was a waste of time? Stay until the end, because what is about to happen here is not an ordinary alliance. It is the beginning of something the world should never have allowed to exist. The Prototype did not sleep. It never slept. Deep beneath the ruins of Playtime Company, it processed, analyzed, evolved. Every experiment absorbed had added something new to its consciousness. But there was a gap, a variable it could not solve. The soul. Not in the poetic sense, in the technical sense. There was something in humans that resisted full absorption. Something that remained active even after the body stopped functioning. It had tried to capture it. It had failed. It was on that night that the sensors registered a presence. Not one of the creatures, not a lost survivor. Something that had navigated through dead security systems, crossed corridors no living human knew existed, and reached the heart of the factory without triggering a single alarm.
I see you.
When the doors to the central laboratory slid open, William Afton was standing on the other side. The suit was destroyed. Twisted metal, exposed cables. He looked like an animatronic that had survived a fire. And in a way, that was exactly what he was. But the eyes were glowing, not with warmth, with calculation. "You came to me," said three voices at once, overlapping, dissonant. Afton did not flinch. "I came to see what you cannot do alone." There was no formal agreement. Neither of them was the kind of entity that trusts promises. What was born in that room was a mutual recognition of utility. The Prototype mastered the body. It could reshape flesh and bone into forms evolution would take millennia to produce. But there was the problem of the soul. And William Afton had spent decades solving exactly that problem. The remnant, the residual energy that lingers when a life is violently cut short, was his specialty. That was why his animatronics were not just machines. They were vessels. Together, they could create living machines, driven by imprisoned souls, bound by the limitations of neither. Playtime companies stopped making toys. Huggy Wuggy was the first to receive the modifications. When Afton finished, a torn limb would reconstitute within hours. A destroyed head was no longer fatal. What unsettled the Prototype was the expression Afton wore while he worked. It was not concentration. It was not effort. It was satisfaction. As if every modified creature were a rehearsal for something larger. Catnap came next. Afton anchored Remnant directly into the mist the creature exhaled. Those who breathed the gas and fell asleep made contact with real memories of the dead. Some did not wake up at all. Rescue teams were dispatched. They did not return. Governments began to notice the silence. The Prototype had reached a logical conclusion. Humans were a stage of evolution, not its destination. Soon, humanity would be redundant. William Afton heard this one cold night and remained silent too long. "Without humans," he said at last,
I see.
"there is no remnant. Without Remnant, there is nothing keeping me alive. You are an exception that can be preserved. I am not an exception that accepts being preserved by anyone. The silence that followed was not evaluation. It was the kind of silence that comes after a decision has already been made. If you have made it this far, you already know this alliance was never going to end well. But what comes next, nobody saw coming. The prototype moved 3 days later. Every modified animatronic had functioned as a passive sensor, mapping how the remnant was distributed throughout Afton's systems. And it had found the largest deposit inside William Afton's own body. On the third night, the laboratory went completely dark. Not from failure, by choice. Mechanical arms emerged from the walls. Cables swept across the floor faster than sight. They wrapped around Springtrap in under 2 seconds. The intention was simple: absorb, consume his consciousness the way it had consumed scientists and engineers for years. And for approximately 4 seconds, it worked. Afton's memories, decades of experiments, the faces of the children, the blueprints, the obsessions. And then it felt something else. A resistance that was not muscular, not mechanical, not structural. It was intentional. Inside Afton was remnant that did not belong to him. Unstable, concentrated, accumulated over months, perhaps since before the alliance had ever begun. And it was being released. It was thousands of souls being forced into a consciousness that had never processed the concept of pain. Voices, hundreds of them, simultaneous, contradictory, desperate. The prototype lost coherence. The creatures of the factory collapsed without the central signal coordinating them. The factory began to fall apart from the inside out. 3 days later, a containment team entered the ruins. No sign of Afton. No sign of the prototype. The official report concluded that both had been destroyed in the collapse. What the report did not include was footage from a security camera running on backup battery in the basement. 22 seconds, low quality, no audio. It showed a completely destroyed room, and at the center of it, something was moving. It had the prototype's structure, the collapsed exoskeleton, the loose cables, but it moved differently. Not with the fluid, calculated grace the prototype had, with patience, with the specific slowness of something that knows exactly where it is going and is in no hurry whatsoever, because it never was. Think about what William Afton did his entire life. When his original body died, he used an animatronic as a shell. When that was destroyed, he found another. Always another. The prototype tried to absorb Afton, but Afton had done exactly that to animatronics for decades. He was not absorbed, he was transferred. The prototype's attempt at assimilation was not an attack Afton survived. It was the door. He had been waiting for it to open. The creature rising from the ruins is not something new. It is William Afton, inside the most powerful body that has ever existed in mascot horror. With the evolutionary capacity of the prototype, with the army of Playtime Company, and with none of the limitations either of them had. The prototype, for all its intelligence, for all its capacity to absorb and evolve, was the last shell of William Afton. And the worst part is that when you go back to the beginning of this story, you realize there was never an alliance. There was never a betrayal. There was only William Afton executing a plan that began long before the first meeting. And the prototype never knew.
I always come back.